What's in the Box, Episodes of Horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna.
I'm Eric.
And on a previous episode, we had talked about the book Dracula by Bram Stoker. And now we're going to look at 5 different Dracula movies that we had watched and compare them to each other and to the book. So let me just share my screen here.
And this was difficult because we picked 5 semi-random movies, but I mean, there's what, 1,000?
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how well we did. Well, I can tell you. So of course, the top 3 are classic representation of Dracula, at least if you talk to just people. That's why I picked those 3.
Yeah. And
but the other 2 are just what they are,
Yeah, just some random picks. All of these I personally hadn't seen except for the Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola, right? I hadn't seen the others, so it was really interesting to watch movies that I hadn't seen before. And I'm not a big fan of black and white, but I found I didn't really mind it when I was watching the Universal Dracula with Bela Lugosi.
I don't like Dracula. I mean, I think I stated that before we started the book. The book's fine.
Yeah.
And but I've never been a big Dracula fan. Go see, I'm not excited when a Dracula movie comes out. I have seen all of these except for the Dracula 3D. But I hadn't seen them in a long time. So the most recent one I'd seen was Dracula Dead and Loving It. I saw that one probably 5 years ago. And out of all these, it's my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. One thing to point out as well is the Hammer version of Dracula, this one here that says the all new Dracula, that actually is called The Horror of Dracula. And I don't know why, when it was originally released, it was called Dracula. But then when they released it in the US, they changed the name to The Horror of Dracula, which I don't know why they would.
They did that a lot with those pictures. Hammer's got different names a lot of times coming over to the States. It could be something to do with their partnership with Universal, because what they basically ended up doing was license, or getting the license to do the movies, but Universal still owned all those, so they kind of got the rights to do it through them, and they would release it through them. So it could simply be that the studio didn't want the same name. They didn't want people to think it was a complete redo, maybe something like that. I don't know for sure. It's something to look into.
Yeah. Bram Stoker's Dracula, Francis Ford Coppola, came out in 92. Dracula Dead and Loving It came out in 95. The Dracula with Bela Lugosi from Universal was 1931, I believe.
Yeah.
And then Argento's Dracula, I believe, came out in 2012. So we did a good job, like, getting a different sampling of different eras of movies. The only exception to that would be Dracula and Dracula Dead and Loving It, because they came out within a few years of each other.
Sure. And what's funny, though, is Dracula Dead and Loving It definitely, you can feel where it took from the movies. But I felt like it did a good job of capturing the vibe of the book.
Yeah. So to me, Dracula Dead and Loving It really followed the plot and storyline of Dracula from 1931. They were almost mirror images to me, with, of course, the humor thrown in.
Which is what we're going to learn with Frankenstein, because he did the same thing. He mirrors Frankenstein perfectly when we do those movies.
I did notice, I had to look up the release dates for Dead and Loving It and Bram Stoker's Dracula, because I noticed in Dead and Loving It, there was a nod to Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Yeah, the shadow.
The hair, his hat.
Yeah, the hair too.
With the like butt-looking hair.
Yeah.
Which was totally a spoof off of the old version of Dracula in Coppola's version.
Yeah, that and then the shadow work too.
Yeah.
because they don't have any of the shadow stuff in Dracula or the Hammer one because they didn't have the. I mean, I guess it was just animated. It could have been CGI, but
Yeah.
the
And I loved the spoof on in Dead and Loving It where they were going through the cobwebs and he's like, because that's of course in the Dracula.
mhm.
Um, and I just thought that was funny because it was all covered in him and he was all stuck in it and stuff. I just thought that was hilarious.
If I'm rating them, I'm probably going Dracula Dead and Loving It, and then it's really close between the original Dracula and the Hammer Dracula for me. And then I'm glad we didn't do this right when I finished watching um Bram Stoker's Dracula by Coppola because I do not like that movie.
Really?
And the 3D one is ridiculous. It was terrible.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah. If I had to rate them in order, I would put Bram Stoker's Dracula first, um, Dead and Loving It second, 1931 Dracula third, and then Hammer's Dracula, and then Argento's Dracula.
I totally would understand why people don't dig Hammer's Dracula. I like it because I love the actors. I like the way they do this stuff in Hammer. This was the one that kind of gets Hammer going, really.
Mm.
Pulls in all the Universals because this one did so well. Then they do Frankenstein, I think, or maybe it's the other way around, but I'm pretty sure Dracula was first. Then they got to do the other ones. And my favorite Hammers are the Mummy and the Werewolf. And, when they go off of the two main popular ones, which I always think Dracula and Frankenstein are the two big ones, and then
Yeah,
the other
yeah.
ones are always thought of as lesser monsters. But Invisible Man to me, and Phantom of the Opera, and I definitely love any of the Mummy movies and all that stuff. But I totally would understand why, because I mean, you got a lanky, long Dracula just running around. There's no special effects. It doesn't half the time it doesn't make any sense the way that he's booking from you know Peter Cushing playing Van Helsing. I totally get that. I could not. I mean, there were so many times during that Coppola Dracula where I just was like, because I watched that. Dawn actually watched that one with me, and I was like, I don't get, this is not anything. First off, it's nothing. It's a little bit like the book, but it really takes a lot of.
Really? You think so? Because honestly, I was going to say that one is the most true to the book.
But see, I don't think it's anything like the book because they completely and totally misrepresent Mina. Mina isn't a lovesick puppy. She isn't chasing after Dracula because she loves him. That's how
Well,
they have it.
well, with
She
that,
doesn't
with
turn on
yeah,
her husband. She doesn't. They
yeah.
took a very strong female character and turned her into a lovesick puppy and had her doing all this crazy stuff. It's excessively, and I get why people might like it too, but it's very over sexual. They got rid of the whole vampires not coming out during the day. He's just walking around in the day. Well,
Well, they were all like that.
um, was the original Dracula like that though? I thought he could only come out at night. The
I
the the
well,
Universal
maybe
one.
yeah,
And
maybe.
Dracula Dead and Loving It. Leslie Nelson couldn't come out. He had a daydream or a daymare
Oh, right, right,
because he was
right. A
having the nightmare.
daymare, yeah.
No, they specifically tell us in Coppola's Dracula, oh, that myth about Dracula vampires not being able to come in the sun, that's nothing. They can do that. It just means they're not as powerful.
Well,
And they go out of
in the
their
book,
way.
he was able to get out in the daytime.
See, I don't remember that. When did he do that in the book? Oh, when they
He,
were out at that thing?
yeah. So it was
Okay.
the same thing. They met, and it was throughout the book because I remember like Van Helsing saying he's weak during the day. He gets his power at
Yeah, but
night.
I got the point was he's weak in the day because that's when he's in his coffin and that's when we could attack him. I never
Yeah,
read it as he's weak in the day because he's out chilling in the sun.
yeah. No, but there were plenty of times where he was like, um, when he had stuff delivered to that final house there, it was the daytime.
Yeah,
So
but I
yeah,
don't remember him. Was he accepting it? I guess
yeah,
I must have just glossed over it. I'll have to go over
yeah,
it again.
yeah.
So I thought that was just kind of convenient the way they did it in that one. And maybe it's because the only time we ever have vampires in the daylight is when they have glitter,
Yeah.
and that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, but I
No,
abs
because in the Hammer one, remember, he's racing against the sun coming up or
yeah.
whatever, and so
Yeah.
that's when they kill him with the sun. He completely dissolves because sunlight touches his skin. So
Yeah.
all of them have that vampires only come out during the night. I don't remember, but again, by the end of Dracula, because we've already discussed that in the book, it was so long-winded by the end that it lost my attention. So I was listening to it more than reading it, and
Yeah.
I probably missed that point. But no, I found I found the way they I thought the casting was terrible in Coppola's. I thought the way they handled Mina was terrible. I didn't enjoy him as Dracula. The book, it's not a love story. We talked about that during the book.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, no,
nothing at all to do with it.
yeah, that's the only exception to the Bram Stoker Dracula is they did add that love story part of it in it. Um,
And it's not just added, it is the reason for that
yeah.
movie to exist, is because
Yeah.
Dracula's in love with his wife, commits suicide. He's heartbroken. And that's why, why he was doing all the stuff for the church. So basically, it was anti church, pro love,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever. But that's not the vibe I got out of the book. And I think that's probably the problem, is that we
Yeah.
read the book so close to it. I had watched the 1931 Dracula. And then when we watched the other one, I'm like, this is like, it just everything. It just had all this weird vibe to it, and I just didn't dig it at all. And I get
Yeah.
it has the best special effects of all 5 movies. It has some fun stuff like with the shadow work and Oldman when he's the old Dracula in the castle. Some of that stuff's pretty creepy. But I didn't dig it as much as like I said, I ended up saying Dracula Dead and Loving It was my favorite, but it's
Yeah.
not like I loved any of these movies. Uh, so
Yeah. And I was kind of curious why in Universal Dracula they changed the name of the ship because
yeah.
besides Bram Stoker's Dracula, that's the only movie that actually had the ship in it.
Hmm.
Um, and they changed it to the Vesta.
Yeah, and I don't know. I don't know. 1931. I
Like,
mean,
is Demeter a bad word? I know Demeter is actually a goddess, a Greek goddess or a Roman goddess. I can't remember which one. So maybe they
yeah, I
didn't
have no
want.
idea why they would change the name of it, but
Yeah.
um, and then again, we can take a step back. The Hammer, if we were going to rate these by how close are they to the book, the Hammer one is nothing like the book. It just
Yeah.
has some of the characters.
Yeah.
And the 3D one, it's not really anything like the book. It's kind of
Yeah.
just, I don't even know. I feel like he got access to CGI and decided I'm going to throw some stuff together,
Mm,
and he had the license. He threw some boobs in there and some vampire strength, and chowing down on people, and then some weird CGI stuff. But overall, that movie I thought was a slog to get through. So
yeah. Um, Hammer Dracula and Argento's Dracula didn't even take place in London.
right. I mean, there's absolutely no London involved,
Yeah.
so that takes a big chunk out of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know. I feel like Coppola drank the Kool-Aid on how great he is when he made that movie, and you know what, I saw that movie in the theater, so I remember seeing that
Me
in the
too.
theater, and I saw Dracula Dead and Loving It in the theater, and I remember not digging. I mean, I remember my favorite part of Dracula Dead and Loving It is when they go to put the stake in Lucy, and then he stops
It's
him and
like,
he
oh, let me
steps
step
back,
back.
and then he hits it, and so much blood. It makes me
Yeah.
laugh
How
every
come
time. I even know it's
you,
going.
you don't have any blood on you? Oh, well, I know where to stand.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yeah, I
So funny
saw
because then he does it when he does it the second time and he knows it's coming, there's just more blood
there
everywhere.
can't be much left.
It's so funny. And even more so when we read the book. And so there were a few jokes that may have slipped by me the first time I saw it. Even five
Yeah.
years ago when I saw it, there might have been something that from the book that was in there but
Yeah. And I saw Dracula, Bram Stoker's Dracula in the theater too. I remember it was like this big thing and me and I think my brother and a friend of mine were going to see it and we were like standing in line in the lobby for like an hour.
You know what? That's
before.
so funny because I bet you there are going to be people that hear this and they'll be like, "I don't understand. Why don't you just go get it online?" You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that was the best thing about movies is that somebody would always have to go get the tickets on opening night if you and everybody wanted to go see stuff on opening
yep.
night.
And if you
So
want to get a good seat, you got to stand in line for an hour.
yeah,
Because they didn't have you pick your seat back then. You just bought a ticket and you got what you got.
and then you just hoped you had the fortitude to hold those seats around you, hold on to them while you waited for your friends to show up or
Yep,
whatever, while
yep,
everybody else was mad that you got up there and laid a coat down on 3 or 4 seats.
yep.
So
Yeah,
yeah, they don't understand how difficult it was just to go enjoy and see a movie. And then there wasn't as many. I mean, now after COVID, there's probably not as many theaters, but there at one point, it didn't seem like anything ever sold out for like a couple
yeah,
of years because there were so many theaters with so many screens showing everything because everything is digital, so it's easier for them to do it.
yep.
But man, I can remember trying to get seats to go see Congo and other blockbusters, Die Hard 3, and not being able to
Mhm.
get tickets that opening night because you didn't get there quick enough.
Yeah, well, I remember that for the original Batman with Keaton,
Hmm.
Michael Keaton. Same thing. My brother and I, my mother dropped us off at the theater, and we were there like 3 hours early because we got there for the show before the show we were going to see, so we could buy our tickets for the next,
Yeah, then
for the
you got to
next
just hang
showing.
out.
We just hung out and waited.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, Hammer's Dracula. I didn't like it because of how they changed around the characters. Um, Mina was married to Arthur. Lucy was Arthur's sister.
yeah,
Um, then they added in this little girl, Tanya, who I was really confused about because I thought it was Mina and Arthur's daughter. But then Mina started saying to the little girl, "Oh, you don't want Mr. Homewood to think you're scaredy cat or whatever it was," she said. So I'm like,
yeah.
okay,
But I
she
think it actually was. I think she was saying it like that because that's how they talked about the father figure in those kind
Yeah,
of
maybe because
pieces.
I kind of got the sense that it was Gerda's,
Yeah, it could
the
have been
the
too.
the
Yeah.
maid, her daughter. I don't know. And then she was calling the Lucy Aunt Lucy, so I was really confused because I thought it was the maid's daughter.
No, then it
And then,
definitely would have had to have been Mina's and the
yeah,
other. But then they're. That's one thing you'll get with Hammer. You get that proper English
mm,
stiff upper lip kind of,
yeah,
Victorian kind of vibe with it. So,
which
I
is
was
a
gonna
shame
say,
because I love Christopher Lee and I love Peter Cushing.
yes. Now, and I think we'll see when we see the Frankenstein movie, it'll be it's much better. I don't think it's their fault. I think it's Dracula. I
Yeah,
really do. I just think it's just Dracula. And I understand why they changed everything up. They probably, at that point, they probably would have been, Dracula, the original, was burned into people's minds. They wanted to do something a little different, maybe,
yeah,
or
and
maybe they didn't. Could be that they just licensed the name and were told, don't redo the movie. You're gonna have to do your own thing. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, and in Universal Dracula, Mina was Seward's daughter. The Dr. Seward
Yeah,
that was Mina's father.
yeah. I was gonna say,
Um,
do you want to flip to the next character thing, and we
yeah,
can go through all the characters? We have pictures of that too. So,
yeah. So here's our Dracula.
okay, which was your favorite Dracula?
I gotta go with Gary Oldman, man. I
Yeah, he's all
I
right.
gotta. I
He's
gotta.
fine. I don't know. That movie was so not what I was thinking it was going to be.
Yeah.
He's a decent Dracula, but I mean, it got so. I mean, the Dracula in the book was not a gentleman.
Mm.
He wasn't huggy.
Handsome.
Yeah, but he wasn't touchy feely.
Yeah.
He was a monster, and he was going to take what he wanted.
Hmm.
And the only reason he seemed to be after Mina in the book, if I remember it correctly, was basically kind of revenge because they took
Yep.
Lucy from him and stuff.
Yeah.
So the whole Coppola Dracula to me was like, this is nothing. It's not a good representation of the book. I didn't like the story they picked. I didn't like the casting, and I was like, he's fine as Dracula. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I just don't. I mean, if I was gonna, somebody said who's the best one here, I'd want to say Christopher Lee, but after watching the movie, you can't pick Christopher Lee.
Yeah, the whole chase scene in the castle was kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, that's silly. And then the fact that he's the only one here that doesn't try to be from Transylvania. He just
Yeah,
talks like a Brit, which I think is
yeah,
kind of funny. And then, but so I think Bela Lugosi's the best one in my mind. That because he's just the traditional classic
yeah,
Dracula, what everybody's trying to be. Although I thought Leslie Nielsen did great. I thought he did really well. I mean, for his age and the content and the whole silliness of it, I
yeah,
thought he was a good Dracula too. I did not like the dude from the 3D one. He's been in a couple other movies I've seen. I mean, he's
yeah,
fine. I just didn't like that
yeah,
movie was kind of
yeah. That was totally,
it didn't make sense.
yeah. There was no um Dr. Seward in it, I don't think.
There wasn't anything that made any the
Yeah,
characters didn't make sense. The few that they had was really it was just a reason for them to have topless vampire ladies running around and this guy
yeah,
kind of the same thing though. He taps into the Coppola with it's a story. Now, so I will say Lugosa, I'll pick as one, but yeah, you're right. Oldman is good just because he's a good actor.
yeah,
And it's not his fault. But I mean, just the the I liked at the beginning of the movie when they had the eyes in the sky kind of thing when
the storm
Keanu
is
Reeves.
coming.
Yeah, and it kind of it looked right.
Hmm.
But then at the end, isn't there some craziness to him or the Mina or somebody in the clouds? And
Yeah,
I'm just like, by the end, oh, and then the blue thing they had going on, the blue spirity thing, and then all of a sudden she has like superpowers or some magic or something at the end of this Coppola one. And then
yeah,
Mina was like, I've tapped into I was like, what is this?
yeah.
It
That's
doesn't
a
make
well,
any
that's
sense.
yeah, that's another difference between the book because in the book, the blue flame was supposed to be where treasure was hidden.
Yeah, that's right.
And
And that's what they saw. And then, but
yeah,
this
and
one, it
in
was
the
like,
Coppola book or Coppola movie, the blue flame was kind of like a barrier between the castle and I'll call it the outside
yeah,
world.
it just
Um,
it didn't
yeah,
land with me.
I mean,
And
I think
so,
they should have just did away with it altogether.
yeah,
Didn't
it didn't make
it?
any sense.
It did make sense, even though in the book the blue flame of the where treasure was hidden really didn't jive with the story either because it had nothing to do with Dracula.
Yeah, it was more of a just here's an interesting side
Mm,
note. There's this
yeah,
thing here and people
here's
look at
this,
yeah, but they
myth.
didn't say it
The
was going to give you power, so why
Yeah,
even introduce it in the movie?
yeah,
So I would go Lugosa, Oldman, Lee. Well, no, Nielsen, Lee, and then that hurts because Lee is
yeah,
amazing in most of these movies.
yeah. I'll have to I'll have to go Oldman,
That's fine.
Lugosi,
So I didn't
Nielsen,
say when I
Lee.
saw it in the theater, I saw that when I saw Dracula, Coppola's Dracula the first time, I saw it with my mom. So you can
Oh
imagine.
boy.
And I was 18, I think, when it came out.
How
So
awkward was that?
very awkward. Although not as awkward as I saw that Casualty of War with my mom when I was like 14. That's Michael J. Fox Vietnam movie where they base the whole story is about this little group of guys going out into the bush and kidnapping a woman to do terrible things to her.
Oh boy.
And I was like, oh, that was yeah. I sat through that watching that with my mom as a 14-year-old. So Dracula was a little better. It wasn't quite as
Yeah.
at least it was sad, but yeah, it was a little weird. So
Yeah. All right. So we got Mina. Um,
and this was a weird one because each Mina is very different.
yeah.
And so that
It's
was kind of a funny thing because the one that should have been the best Mina, what I would have thought would have been Coppola's. But
yeah.
I don't like the way they changed the character. I mean, she betrays Harker.
Yeah.
She's, um, she's, I don't know, just everything about it. I've already said it, what I was thinking about when I was watching it for the movie itself. So I was already kind of taken out of it with her. And plus, it
Yeah.
just seems weird to see Winona
Yeah.
Ryder and Keanu Reeves as the two main people
Yeah.
in there.
Um, I didn't like Hammer's Mina because they made her older
Yeah.
than what the character in the book. Mina and Lucy are young women. They're like 19, 18 years old. And
Yeah, she's not on the same page as Lucy.
yeah,
She's the mother of the house. She's the lady of the house. So I mean, she's
Yeah.
a person of power, strength, whatever. She's grounded. Doesn't make none of it made really any sense. I mean, I guess we should explain that. The Hammer story was Parker and it is Harker, right? The one, yeah, it's Harker and
Harker was Lucy's betrothed suitor.
yeah, but he was the one working with Van Helsing, right? Or did
Yes.
or okay, yeah. I'm trying to think if it was Renfield or not.
Yeah,
But
it was Harker was Van Helsing's assistant in that one.
right, and they're
No, 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 no,
already
no, no, wait.
it
That's
was
wrong.
Renfield, wasn't it?
It was Harker was Renfield's Van Helsing's assistant in the Bela Lugosi, I think.
No,
Or am
no,
I
I'm
gonna
talking
get
about
specific?
it. So the whole premise of the Hammer one was they already knew Dracula existed. They already knew he was a vampire, and they had sent somebody in to spy on him.
Jonathan. They
They had
sent
sent Hark,
Jonathan.
yeah, so they sent Harker first, so they already knew all this. He was going in as a we're going to kill
Yeah.
Dracula,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was working for Van Helsing. All the other ones followed the book at least a little bit, saying that Harker was either a librarian or an accountant or a lawyer, and he was gonna be working to sell
Yeah.
land to um, Dracula. So this one, the Hammer one, is really different.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so when we get to this thing, it doesn't make you. Lucy's a younger character, and so there's this isn't a love struck kind of the girls are in love with any of the characters or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
just different. The whole way they did it was totally different. They had it's like it was a he goes in to kill Dracula and he gets busted and they kill him, and that's how the movie kind of starts off. That's how we're introduced to everybody when they figure Van Helsing figures out that the guy's been turned into a vampire and he
Yeah,
has to go
because
back to the family and tell them.
yeah, because Van Helsing kills Harker
Mm-hmm.
and then goes back to the family.
And then he tries to keep it away from him, but then he realizes the vampire's there and he's feeding on Lucy. So then he has to convince Seward that his sister has been turned into a vampire and that they have to do this stuff to her.
Yeah.
So it's a lot. It's totally it's the same names and sort of some of the same ideas, but it's totally different. And so
Yeah.
that totally takes Mina out of it. She's completely just bait.
Yep. Yeah, she only has like a small part at the end where she's been turned.
Yeah. But even at that point, she wasn't like
Yeah.
pro Dracula. The only one
Right.
that's pro Dracula is Winona Ryder, and it
Yeah.
totally I just thought it took away from everything Mina was supposed to be about.
Yep.
So I guess in this whole thing, my favorite one is probably the one from Dracula Dead and Loving It because she was just the least funny, and she
Yeah.
was more of a stand-up character, and more traditional, more like
Yeah.
the book.
Yeah.
Um,
And this Mina here, I forget her name, the one from 1931, Universal. She was at least more because in the book, Mina is this young, innocent, kind of weak, like a typical female is portrayed back in 1897. But then in the book, she has these strengths as well, and she's also portrayed as someone very strong.
yeah,
The Mina from the Universal, I think, was really good at portraying the weak female character, the from
right,
the book. And she added Universal. Mina was Seward's daughter, which I think I had already mentioned.
yeah,
Um, so that was kind of weird
yeah.
to me.
In the and then Mina's the just the childhood friend of Lucy in the 3D, the Spanish
Yeah,
version,
yeah,
which of course is dubbed in English. And
yeah.
that was,
But she was still married to Harker
yeah, and
because
that was
she
still
was,
something. But then he stole that from Coppola because he has the picture. Dracula sees the picture, reminds him of whatever, and then he wants her and gets rid of Harker and all
yeah.
that stuff.
And she actually, now that I'm remembering, she is towards the end kind of a little bit pro Dracula, kind of.
Yeah, if we're talking about the 3D one, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
all of that was,
yeah,
it was really bad.
yeah. The thing that annoyed me about the Coppola Mina Dracula relationship was where Mina is actually getting ready to drink Dracula's blood. Um, she's like, "Take me away from all this death," and I'm like, "What? All this death? The only person who's died is Lucy. I mean, Renfield died, but she didn't know about that."
Right.
Yeah, she's like, "Take me away from all this death." Like,
Yeah, I mean, by that time, she's just completely not the character that we're supposed to believe
yeah.
she is. She is
And I'm
just,
like, that would have made more sense if they would have followed more from the book, because as we said when we discussed the book, you know, Lucy died, Lucy's mother died, Arthur's father died, Redfield died. So there was way more death
yeah,
in the book than there was in the movie. So like, what death are you talking about? Like, who came up with that line and why did they leave it in the?
yeah. By that time, I was pretty like, I wasn't totally checked out, but I was kind of beside myself thinking, this isn't the route I would have thought they would have taken.
Yeah. I just kind of wish they wouldn't have made Mina a redhead in Dracula Dead and Loving It. Because in the book, it's
Yeah,
Lucy was the
I
redhead and Mina had the dark hair.
yeah, yeah, that's true. And then they flipped it, right? Because Lucy has black hair in
Yeah,
Dracula Dead and Loving It. So,
yeah,
but this lady is always redheaded, so maybe that's in her contract.
yeah. Amy
So
Asbeck.
she played Mary. Yeah. So
And then, of course, we got Lucy, um, Lucy Westerner. Uh,
probably the closest to the book it would be Coppola's. She was,
mhm.
flirty and almost
Too flirty.
too flirty. Yeah.
Yeah,
That I mean that's I understand that we we the Dracula idea of Dracula sexualized through a lot of different things. But I got the vibe when I was watching the Coppola one that everybody was sexualized even without the presence of the vampire there to cause it. You know what I mean?
hmm,
It just seemed over the top. So then when Dracula's doing stuff, it doesn't come across as even remotely um, out of place. But it's supposed to be out of place. That's the whole point, of the
yeah,
reading is that he is going to be the. But again, there's no romance in the book. There's no romance with this character. It's not supposed to be this heart throbby kind of thing, which is what I really do feel like they missed
yeah,
they did. I'm sure that's what he made what he wanted to make. I just felt like, oh, I could have been seeing this late night on Cinemax. So
yeah. Skinamax After Dark.
right. So the Lucys here are all they're fine. I mean, again,
Yeah.
Dracula Dead, loving it. She does a really good job. The the 3D one, that's his daughter. The guy that directed it, that's his daughter
Oh,
is
oh
Lucy.
yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that when I was looking at the cast. Yeah,
And all of them did fine. I mean, they get the cool thing. They get to become the vampire, and they get to be,
yeah.
beheaded and staked and all that good stuff.
Yeah, I did like the part where Lucy in the Coppola version got beheaded and her head was flying. Um,
Yeah,
I
I'm a
thought
big
that was
fan of that
pretty
kind of
cool.
stuff. So I'm like, okay, very pro, special effects and all that. So of course Coppola had the best, which is funny because they would have had more technology for that 3D one, but the special effects, they stand out. They're really bad. And at one
Yeah.
point he turns into a praying mantis, which I was like, I don't even understand what's going on.
Yes. What the hell was that all
I was like,
about?
I mean, I guess it's some sort of symbolism and stuff, but I thought this is a
What?
terrible choice
What?
and doesn't make any sense. So,
I was watching it and I had to rewind it because I'm like, did I just see what I just saw? It turns into a freaking praying mantis.
yeah,
I,
that one missed everything. That
I
missed
don't
the
I don't understand where that could have even come from.
And in that version, Dracula basically is in cahoots with the town,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is mind blowing, that they're all there reaping, from his existence.
Yeah.
So I was just
Uh,
like, this doesn't make any sense. So
yeah. I'm really sad that none of these movies mentioned the Bloofer lady, which is actually Lucy as a vampire. In the book, the Bloofer lady, if you remember the children when they're found, they're like, "Oh, I went with the Bloofer lady."
yeah.
And it was supposed to be some kind of take on them saying the beautiful lady. because
Yeah.
I had to Google it and see what that was all about. We did see some of them with children,
Yeah.
um,
But nothing.
but I just wish something would have like they would have mentioned that because I thought that was a
Was
really cool thing.
they glossed over her. They gave
Yeah,
her like, okay, they did a little bit on her becoming a vampire and what went through, but they didn't do a good job. I didn't think any of them did a good job of the her getting ill and then becoming a vampire and then she dies. They did that in like seconds, and
yeah,
then they barely give her any a bit, chance for us to watch her become a vampire, grow into the vampire, feed on anything, and grow the legend of the vampire. It's
yeah,
almost instantaneous that we know that she's a vampire and that they're going to kill her.
yeah.
And
The
so, yeah, you're totally right. So one of the cool things they could have done, they could have had especially Coppola's, could have really done some cool things with
yeah, and
5 minutes.
yeah, and I was kind of expecting it in the Hammer version because they had that little girl Tanya who was like, they're like, oh, she was missing, and then she was saying how she was with the woman. I was waiting for that to come about, and then I'm like, oh, she just said it was Aunt Lucy. She didn't say, you
Yeah,
know.
so we know that they at least made mention of it, but yeah, we don't get any of the
Yeah, yeah, because I don't think we actually saw Lucy as a vampire in the Hammer. I don't think so.
in the Hammer one. No, I don't think so either. I think well, because they at some point they had to convince him that she was a vampire. So she have the little kid. She was going to feed on it out
Yeah,
in the graveyard, going into the whatever it is, the
mausoleum. Yeah, I don't
mausoleum.
know.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the other problem with us waiting a little bit. They've all merged together into one film in my head.
Yeah, yeah. I loved the autopsy Lucy autopsy scene in Dead and Loving It. It's like she was sick and then she was dead and then she was being autopsied and then she was a vampire. Like,
Yeah, yeah. I
um,
thought they did a good job in that one, at least, of following some of the stuff. So
yeah, I was watching Coppola's Dracula one night and I actually was reading the book at the same time. Um, and as I was watching, it got to the part that I was reading in the book. And that part was where they go to get Lucy, you know.
hmm
They confront Lucy, I guess I'll say in the tomb. So it was actually really cool to be reading that part and seeing it on the screen because I thought it was pretty well done and pretty close to what the book was saying was happening. Um, so I just thought that was really interesting.
that
It
was,
just
but it is one of the things that Coppola did right. He actually has the three guys that
yeah,
help Van Helsing, which none of the other ones really do. They
yeah,
might have one or two of the guys, but they don't have everybody. And at least Coppola decided to give us all the characters, all the people chasing after Lucy, everybody bringing Harker back, So he does follow the book closely in that regard. He does give us the characters at least.
yeah. And no praying mantis.
Yeah, I know. It's so weird.
Oh, it was funny. Dr. Seward.
So one of the movies, the was it Argentino? He that one didn't have a Seward, right?
Yeah, Argento. Yeah, they did not
Argento.
have a steward. Um,
And Coppola decided to go crazy ass with his
and
because
make his a heroin addict or
yeah,
whatever. Yeah,
and
morphine addict. There was like one small mention of him using morphine in the book, and it was actually him mentioning how he didn't want to take it.
right.
But then he decided to turn him into a drug addict. You know,
Well,
but
he's surrounded by crazy people, and I get that, and so everybody else though decided to make him a fatherly figure.
yeah,
All the other ones, he's older, he's the dad, or he's
just
at
give him an
least
enema.
that was hilarious. So out of these, of course, my favorite is going to go back to Dracula Dead and Loving It. But I mean, I didn't mind the character that they had going in Coppola,
Yeah,
and he was interesting in the fact that he was different than the other two suitors, and
yeah,
it wasn't all just blurred together. Each one of them had a very distinct personality,
hmm
and they all brought something different to the table. So that was at least semi. Um, I don't know. It was nice and during that movie, but The
Yeah,
other
and
two
I
were just basically, they're just the
yeah,
dads or
yeah,
they're supposed to be the common sense of the picture, the ones that don't
yeah,
believe in vampires, that follow modern medicine, and they don't believe in any of that
yeah,
kind of crazy talk. Coppola's, though, I think he'd have bought into it right away. I mean, he didn't seem like he was going to have any issues.
yeah. I
But it
like.
also made more sense, though, is that he actually is the right age for Van Helsing to be his mentor. The
Mhm.
rest of them are like the same age or just a
Yeah,
little bit. So
yeah,
totally
yeah. I
different.
liked Coppola having um uh Arthur and Seward and what was the Texan's name again? I can't remember. Quincy.
Yeah.
Um, I liked that because they were in the book. She had three suitors. One was a Texan named Quincy, one was Dr. Seward, and one was Arthur Homewood. Um, so I like that. So what I didn't like or get about the Hammer version, and I'm saying this during the Seward slide just because it has to do with the asylum. Why was Renfield always in their front room?
Yeah, he was just kind of loose.
It was like, so I get they lived supposedly in the asylum, and that's consistent throughout all the movies. Um, but they're just like he's just like going into the front room with them, and just being Renfield. It's like, uh, isn't the asylum like separate, or do they just have like bedrooms in the back where they keep the crazy people?
But wasn't he loose in the Universal one too, though? Yeah, I feel like he was like laughing just
Yeah,
off the screen, and they were
yeah,
like, oh, and then he's just kind of like walking by. But at
yeah.
least I
But
think they had a guard with them every time, but still,
Martin, yeah,
yeah, they seem to be a little looser with him.
yeah.
Yeah,
They should have given him an enema.
right. I mean, that make it two.
Make it
Make it
two
two. So funny. Because that's exactly what medicine probably was at that period
back
of time.
then. Yeah, leeches and enemas.
Yeah.
It
I don't
won't
know
do
how.
anything for him, but it'll make him feel better.
Right.
Um, I gotta, I don't know. I gotta say, my favorite Seward. I don't even know the actor's name. Is from Coppola's version. I
Yeah, I
just,
mean, you know why? Because he actually had a purpose.
yeah,
Like he had, I don't know, some interesting lines and some, I don't know. Everybody else was just there. I even felt like they were just there for the other actors to play off of.
yeah. And Van Helsing. Um, Peter Cushing. I like Peter Cushing. Who doesn't love Mel Brooks?
He
I
was
mean,
very good as Van Helsing. Very
he
funny.
was. He was very good as Van Helsing. Anthony Hopkins. I love me some Anthony Hopkins.
I had a problem with his Van Helsing in one regard. In the book, he's very paternal with Mina.
Mhm.
But every time he interacted with Mina in Coppola's, there was this weird sexual
Yeah, yeah.
overtones, and it was so, it just put you off. I mean, I even turned to Dawn and was like, "Hey, am I crazy, or is this like, is he putting off a vibe?"
It was like
Because
creepy old man vibe.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that's like, no, that's not Van Helsing. That's not what we're looking for here. And I felt like the whole movie was like that. It was very charged. Like we
yeah,
said, it would make more sense if they wanted to do that with just letting Dracula and then the vampires and be that way and be so like a mirror to it. But I don't know. I
yeah,
just did not like that aspect of it. But like I mean, he's a good actor, so of course he pulls it off,
yeah,
and he does a good job at it. So my favorite is probably Cushing or Mel Brooks.
yeah,
But
yeah. I'd have to.
yeah, Hopkins is right there. That is something that Coppola got right. He definitely cast Van Helsing properly. I just didn't like the tone they did because but again, I thought they had already ruined Mina, so it did. I guess it doesn't even matter. But
Yeah,
the Van
yeah,
Helsing though from the original is kind of just it just seemed odd. I
mm,
don't know, but he
yeah.
was
I
good
did.
too.
Yeah,
I mean, he was fine.
yeah. I love the picture you chose for.
I know when he does that, it's so funny because he repeats it too. Um,
Yeah, you gotta love the Mel Brooks.
Yeah, and the guy, of course, that we should be like, oh, and part of the reason we kind of wanted to watch the 3D one was because of who they cast for Van Helsing, and he was just cashing a paycheck, so
Mm-hmm.
he was barely there. I'm not even sure what the purpose was, so
Yeah,
it was just to get his name on the poster, probably.
yeah.
But yeah, he was not good at all.
No. and Jonathan Harker. Um, as we've mentioned in a couple of the movies, Jonathan Harker was a librarian. Um, Jonathan Harker from Dead and Loving It was,
He was like a doctor, right? He was one of the
yeah,
assistants.
yeah, he was Seward's like assistant in the
Yeah.
insane asylum. Keanu Reeves' version was a lawyer, which is consistent with the book, or
Yes.
solicitor.
And I think
Um,
really the problem is it's Keanu Reeves,
yeah,
especially it's young Keanu Reeves who he just and I will give him I'll give him props. He went with the accent, and it wasn't a bad accent, so it didn't seem like he was out of place. But I mean, it's still Keanu Reeves, and it isn't until more recently that you can kind of see him in other roles. But this is still Bill and Ted Keanu Reeves who we're
he's
watching
still
in
Ted.
Dracula.
Yep,
So
yep,
it's the same vibe. No Parenthood did the same thing. So I
yeah.
know he was trying to branch out, and I get it, but I just didn't. I didn't buy it as much as the other guys.
Yeah. And this one from Hammer's version, I just could not get past the goofy look on his face when he was a vampire and Van Helsing was going to kill him. I couldn't
Yeah,
get past it.
but I didn't mind him. I thought he was good, and I like the idea
Yeah.
that they came up with that he's like a fellow vampire hunter. They could have really leaned into that and done some cool
Yeah.
things, but
Yep.
they didn't, of course. But
Yep.
um, and
And
the
this,
original,
yeah,
the Universal one, he was good.
yeah, he was good. The Argento one really didn't have a huge role.
No, he was there to make sure Dracula saw a picture of Mina, and
Yeah.
that was it. And then
Yep.
they killed him.
Hmm.
And uh, did they even turn him into a vampire? I don't remember. I
Uh,
don't think so.
I I think they did, but then he got killed
Like immediately, it was like
because
really.
Tanya, Dracula's first mistress, um,
She was
Renfield,
feeding on him,
she was feeding on him, and then he
and then he
turned
came
and
in and Dracula throws her to the side, then he bites down, says he's
yeah,
mine.
yeah,
But yeah, no, yeah, he's just window dressing.
yeah, pretty much. No, Harker is Harker. I don't think in any of the movies except for Bram Stoker's Harker really had a significant role.
No, they did it right on that aspect. They definitely gave him, he's the guy at the castle. He's the one getting attacked by the ladies. He's the one that they're holding prisoner. He escapes. He gets rescued by the nuns. They come to, they bring Mina to marry him. So they do follow the story perfectly. He
Hmm.
comes back. I'm trying to think, does he immediately know what happened, or is he more trying to be in the dark like in the book? I can't remember, but but he's ready to fight Dracula right away.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
Steven Weber is funny though. He's really good as
yeah.
Harker, especially when Lucy's trying to
I'm
seduce
an
him.
engaged man.
Yeah, and then even when Mina she's coming on to him and he's all like, I'm British, you need to stop what you're doing.
Yes, I'm British, but I'm
Yeah.
British.
So I thought
And
that
then,
was all very
then,
funny.
then Mina tells her father, "Oh, he put his hands on me," and he's like,
So funny.
I'm British." Then we have Renfield,
Which wasn't in uh
Argento.
it
No,
wasn't
there
yeah.
was a,
No, actually I have the stupid guy on here twice, so he wasn't in there.
yeah,
No, I think he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't in Hammer, and he wasn't in.
because Argento had a Renfield.
Yeah, it's the guy in the middle here.
Yeah, you're
That's him.
missing the Renfield from Bram Stoker's.
Yes, that's who I'm missing.
You put Harker first, but that's okay.
Yeah,
Um,
punch drunk by that time.
yeah. So I gotta say, this Renfield, Peter McNichol, and this Redfield, or did I get them back
You
mixed
got him
up?
backwards. Peter McNichols is on the bottom. Yeah,
Yeah. So these two, when I watched this one, and then late when I watched this one afterwards. These two actors, he mimicked the 1930 the Universal Redfield, like his weird, creepy laugh and
yeah,
like just his facial expressions. I was starting to think that they were related. What is his name? Fry. This is
yeah. No,
Fry. William.
he's just perfect. I mean, they both
Yeah.
were really good.
Yeah. What was
And
his name? I looked it up because I was so Peter McNichol was a Dead and Loving It, and then I think it's Oops, I closed it instead. Dwight Fry. It was in the Universal. But I was like, holy crap, I had to look it up because I swore that they were related just because of their facial expressions, the sound of their laugh. There's a few scenes in Dead and Loving It where McNichol is like got this same weird grin on his face.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's pretty freaking creepy.
Yeah, and we can pretend that this other one that I did incorrectly will be the right one. I'll just overimpose it when I'm doing the post production. So,
Yeah.
because I thought the guy that did Coppola's Renfield was really good too. I
Yeah.
really thought the only one that wasn't any good is the guy in the middle that was in the 3D version because he really wasn't Renfield. He was just like a giant stooge going around attacking people and
And
fighting.
and Tanya's dinner.
Yeah, basically. And then, but he didn't really have a role that was the same as what we were looking for.
Yeah.
Um, I thought in the Coppola one, the guy is when he talks to Mina, he really captures that vibe that when
Hmm.
he's like, "You need to leave, you need to run away."
I hope I never see you again. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he did a really good job portraying that little brief moment of sanity where he kind of sees into it, sees past the monster, even though he's, you know, the slave to him. And I thought they did a really good job of explaining who he was and why he was in the mental, which we didn't. We complained about that in the book.
Yeah.
You know, Coppola's like they immediately tell you Renfield was there first. Now he's in an insane asylum, and that's the whole reason Harker is the one is there to finish the job.
Yeah,
So
and
I
that
thought,
they must have taken that from the 1931 as well, because that's the way it started off with Renfield going to Dracula's castle to sell him the
yeah,
property.
which I thought was that's the way it should be. That
Yeah,
makes it make sense because then you understand why he worships Dracula, why he's been, hypnotized into being his servant, and why he works so hard to do everything for Dracula. It makes sense from the 31, and it makes sense when they at least explain that he was in contact with Dracula. But while
yeah.
we were reading the book, it didn't make much sense because we had no reason to think that they had
Had any
come
contact? Yeah,
right. So
yeah,
yeah, no, the Dracula Dead and Loving It one, he just does a really good job of
yeah.
making fun of everything and
My
just really,
yeah, my favorite part was when he was trying. They let him go, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna lose them."
yeah, he just kind of runs to one
He
section back
just
and forth.
like runs to the left, runs to the right, then comes back, and then he goes. I think they were hiding in the bushes, and they're like, "He's an idiot."
That and when he goes under the covers and they pull him out, he's like, I didn't see anything, I didn't see anything. And they throw him in the cell and he turns to the camera and he goes,
And
I
he
saw
goes, "Saw
everything,
everything." Yeah,
which is
and the
pretty
funny,
funny.
yeah, and then another funny part with Redfield was when he was at Dracula's castle and the women came in and they were like doing that floaty thing, and then
Yeah.
Dracula came in and he's like, "Will you two stop doing that?" And then they started like stomping out of the room.
Yeah. Very funny. I think, yeah, I mean, that's a good thing too. I mean, with the book and then also watching some of the movies and then seeing Dracula Dead and Loving, you get all of the little jokes that maybe slip by if you're not
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But out of these, um, including in imagining that the Renfield from Coppola is up in that corner, I almost want to say the 1931 guy was the best because he was just
yeah.
perfectly creepy and
Hmm.
but I did enjoy Coppola's and of course the other guy like you said he was a mirror image of the
Yeah,
the original,
yeah,
so he did
yeah.
his job. He was
Mhm.
hired to parody the character and he did it better than anybody.
Yeah. Don't call me master. Okay, master.
When
The
he's at
ball.
breakfast and he's just
Yeah.
grabbing the different insects and the guy's like, did you just eat a spider? He's like, no, it's a blueberry, and he's like trying to he's got the leg kicking out and stuff, just real funny stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. Dwight Fry was the best Redfield, I think.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
interested to see if he's in anything else. I'd like to see him just act.
yeah.
He did a really
Well,
good job.
let's see. Let me see what else let me see. What movies were he in? Or was he was in Frankenstein,
Okay.
1931. Um,
Is,
Son of Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. So
does he play
The
Igor?
Invisible Man. Let me see. Frankenstein. I think he does play Igor, actually.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's been for
Cast.
ages since I've seen that. I'm excited for us to read Frankenstein just so we can
Oh
watch
no, he played someone named Fritz in
Fritz.
Frankenstein.
Well, then we'll have to figure out who Fritz is.
Yeah, so that's weird.
So basically, we can see him in most of the Universal monster pictures.
Yeah, who did he play in The Invisible Man? I'm curious. Not that I'm familiar with that. Oh, he just played a reporter in The Invisible Man. Um, but yeah, he's in Frankenstein. So, and I don't see. Um, let me look. I don't see an Igor listed in the cast of the 1931 Frankenstein. So maybe Fritz is kind of the Igor.
Yeah, unfortunately, in my head, Young Frankenstein pretty much all that's playing. So I can't remember. I don't remember when I did see. I know I've seen Frankenstein. It's been a long time. It's not one
Yeah,
I don't gravitate towards the two big ones. I'm always
yeah,
more interested in the werewolf or the other monsters. So it'll be nice to read the books and see the portrayal. I have a feeling we're going to have a better time with the Frankenstein movies
yeah,
than well, I don't know. Maybe you had it because I know you enjoyed Coppola way more than I do. So maybe it may not be that way, but for me, I think Frankenstein's going to be a a more entertaining deep dive.
yeah. So, with the exception of the Argento Dracula, um, I gotta say they were all pretty decent. That one was a total bomb for me.
Yeah,
Um,
that one, it just was really
yeah, it was just
that definitely was one that you would catch on Skinamax. That's
yeah,
really its whole point. And
yeah.
so,
Well, yeah, the like one of the opening scenes is them having sex in the barn.
yeah, which is amazing because I mean he's known for some amazing things that he did, and it's probably maybe it's an age thing, but when he was doing his movies in the 70s and 80s, they're considered classic, groundbreaking movies, and then this thing was just the opposite in every
Yeah,
way. And
yeah,
again, maybe it's Dracula. Maybe we're talking about something that just can't be. You really can't put your mark on it because it's just the character's so much larger than life that you kind of are forced to do what everybody's already done. So that could
yeah,
be something like that. And then maybe that's why the parody is so much better in my mind than the other ones, is because that works. It's the only way you get something fresh or different into the mystique of the character and stuff. Um, I do know I enjoyed the only Dracula I've really enjoyed are in comic book form. Marvel has a run in the
mm,
'70s that was really fun. So, but I can't think of any of the. Oh, you know, I did. Did you ever see Dracula 2000? That one's decent, but
yeah,
it's really MTV
yeah,
glammed up. And Dracula's they ignore everything about Dracula, and the myth is totally different. So maybe that's how they get around it. They just use the name. So
yeah. There was a Dracula that came out not too long ago that I really enjoyed.
the Dracula on NBC was really good.
Yeah,
When it was like 10 episodes, and he was coming back to introduce electricity into Victorian England, and he was still Dracula, but he was there to get revenge on this like hidden group of people, this
mm,
underground religious sect that had
yeah.
gone and persecuted his people and all that stuff.
What was the
Um,
movie that I was thinking of?
that one was really good, and but it got canceled after the first season, so it never even actually got off the ground. It really
Yeah,
just laid everything down. I know there was a BBC one recently. It was like a two part movie thing, but I
yeah.
didn't see that one.
I think it was like Dracula, the beginning or something like that.
Oh, you're talking about the one with Lee Evans as Dracula,
Yeah.
where he sacrifices himself and becomes a
Yes.
vampire. That's
Yes.
a good movie, but now that we've read Dracula, it doesn't hold to the but again, they put a unique spin on it, and maybe
Hmm.
that's how you make it interesting. Yeah, you're right. That one is good, but I'm a big Lee Evans fan.
Yeah.
Is that is that who it
Yeah,
is? I think that's his
I think
name.
so. Yeah. And then there was a series on Netflix, Dracula, which took place at like a convent. And then they got on the ship, um, which I kind of lost interest when it got on the ship. Um, but I thought that was pretty decent.
Yeah, I don't know. I
Um,
don't think I've seen that one. But again, if it says Dracula 9 out of 10, I'm not going to be interested. So I don't even.
yeah,
I just keep going, you know. So
yeah. And the
um,
one that just came out, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which of
yeah,
course is not really about Dracula, it's about the voyage from Varna to London. I thought that was a really I enjoyed that movie. I don't think it necessarily is based. I shouldn't say it's not based on Dracula because it totally is, but um, as a Dracula movie, I don't think it was good. But as a movie about a ship that has a vampire on it and they're crossing the
yeah.
ocean, it was really good. It was
And
really
that's probably how you do it. You take a little sliver out of the original, and then you go and you expand that idea, and then you are allowed to introduce things that make it interesting. And that's how those. Because I didn't even see the. Did you see Renfield, the comedy one?
I have not seen that.
I
No.
haven't watched that one either, and I'm sure it's fine. But again, I mean, that's the only way you could put a spin on it is by focusing on a different character, and then. But in that one, all the previews, Dracula seems like a villain, like he's supposed to, like a monster. Now,
Yeah.
one that we should have probably watched and we did was the 79 one, where Dracula's like real handsome and he's supposed to be,
Yeah.
and it's more Victorian era and it's got that vibe to it. I've heard people say that one's a pretty good movie representation, but I don't know I don't know if it would have been a fun movie, but
Yeah. Yeah. Then there was the other one that I had um, suggested that we watch before we changed to watching Argento or Dread and Loving It, was the one from I think it was 2016, and it was basically the premise was Arthur Holmwood has syphilis and he contacts Dracula to come and help cure him of syphilis so he can marry Mina or Lucy. I can't remember one of the
yeah.
two. I'm like, I don't know. That seems like it's way too far off.
Well, now that we've watched the 3D one, maybe it wouldn't have been too far off because that one was way off too. So the one we did replace it with was just as crazy,
Yeah,
I guess. So
yeah, yeah. That's our take on those five movies. If leave a comment if you have any other suggestions on Dracula movies that may be better, um, or tell us why we were wrong about what we said about some of the movies. But
yeah, I don't
I
know.
really enjoyed this series. Reading the book and then watching these movies, it was great. It exposed me to the original 1931 Dracula, which I had never seen before. I had never seen the Dracula before. I could have gone without seeing the Argento Dracula. And like I said,
Yeah,
who doesn't love Mel Brooks and Leslie Nielsen?
yeah, that one
Uh,
was really good.
yeah,
I mean, it's not as good as Young Frankenstein, but still, for what he was putting out in the '90s, it holds up.
yeah. And now it's time for our not Stephen King book of the week. And I figured since we were talking about vampire movies, we should do a vampire book just to kind of stay with the same theme. And the book I've chosen for this week is A Gift of Death by Daniel J. Volpe. And we all know I love Daniel Volpe. Um, this is about a rock band that's actually vampires. So they're traveling around on tour. Um, and they go and get their victims um, on the way. There is um, I forget the main character's name, but he's a big fan of this band and he decides he wants to go and see them. And if you're lucky, you get picked to go on their bus or in their van after the show for like a meet and greet. And of course, that's how they get their victims. Um, and in typical Volpe fashion, it is, of course, pretty gruesome. So you'll definitely want to check that out. There is a sequel Um, and I'm blanking on the name of the sequel. I think it's like Red Hearts and Black Teeth or something
Yeah, I
like
think that
that.
might be it.
Yeah,
I
I
can't think of it
totally,
either. I'm sitting here
yeah,
staring at the cover, which I love this cover, but
yeah,
there's a new cover now, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, this one he's re-released with a new cover. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I do love
But
this one.
yeah, so if you like, your horror mixed with heavy metal rock, uh, definitely check out A Gift of Death. I
Yeah,
enjoyed it. I thought it was a great story. Um,
he's a great writer, so
he is a
people
great
are great.
writer. Yeah, so check it out. We'll have a link to it down in the description. And go and check out A Gift of Death, and we will see you on the next episode.
Take it easy.